Australia and the UK are hailing a new dawn in relations after the countries reached in-principle agreement on free trade. Scott Morrison and his British counterpart Boris Johnson unveiled the agreement in London late yesterday. So it's going to see restrictions on working visas relaxed, with the age limit on working holiday visas increased to 35. Australian lamb, beef and sugar are likely to be exported into Britain in greater volumes, and winemakers are also a winner, with tariffs to be cut. Political reporter Noor Hayder joins us now from Parliament House in Canberra. Noor, g'day. So this is an in-principle agreement. It's not the actual agreement, and apparently journalists over there in the UK haven't even seen the text of this in-principle agreement. So what's known to be the actual substance of this and how it's actually going to affect Australian farmers and consumers?
Well, Joe, that information isn't available to the public as yet. The details of this agreement are still being worked through, but the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, last night unveiled some of the details of what will be in this FTA based on the negotiations that they've had over the last couple of days. But the federal government, our government, says that this deal will mean more jobs and greater business opportunities for Australian exporters. For Australian consumers, it should make the cost of some British products cheaper. The federal government will be lifting or scrapping tariffs on some British goods, including cars and whiskey. The government says that for Australian producers and Australian farmers, they'll have greater access into the market in the UK, with tariffs on rice and on wine being lifted immediately. But under this deal, for products including beef, lamb, dairy and sugar, those tariffs will be lifted gradually over the next 10 years. The Trade Minister, Dan Tehan, says there will be immediate benefits, with duty-free quotas being lifted over the next 10-year period. And he has described this FTA as a win for the agriculture sector in Australia.
It rights an historic wrong of 50 years ago, where the UK turned to Europe and left especially Australian farmers standing, looking for other markets. Now, ultimately, we found those other markets in the Indo-Pacific, but to be able to right that wrong and now enhance that close economic partnership again, especially for Australia's agricultural sector, is a huge achievement, and something that I know all Australian farmers will be very pleased with when they wake up this morning.
Now, the federal opposition has welcomed this in-principle agreement. The Deputy Labor leader, Richard Marles, says he would like to see further details, but Labor is supportive of the Australian government looking for other markets for Australian producers.
It does make sense for us to ultimately be doing a trade agreement with the UK. Obviously, we'll want to have a look at the detail as it goes through the processes in Canberra, but it's important that we are seeing trade diversification because we need to be having a much broader set of international markets than we currently have.
And Noor, the Australian government has announced a new farm work visa will be offered. What's the reason behind that?
Well, Joe, part of this agreement will see the working visa rules changed. Australians and Britons will be able to work in either country for 3 years instead of 2, and that will apply to people up to the age of 35, not 30. But the deal also removes the requirement for British backpackers to work on Australian farms for 88 days. To fill the workplace shortfall that could arise from that, the federal government will introduce a new farm work visa that will apply for 10 Southeast Asian countries. So it will apply for ASEAN nations including Indonesia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Singapore and the Philippines. The Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud, says workers from those countries will take up jobs that aren't being done by Australians.
In addition, you've got to understand to the Pacific Labour Scheme and the seasonal worker programs from a Pacific nation. And that's the gold star that we continue to want to ramp up because the Pacific family is important to us. But the 10 ASEAN countries will now be offered this visa to allow their citizens to come and work here for 3 years, for 6 to 9 months each year, but must go back to their country of origin for at least 3 months. But this gives them the opportunity to participate, and we're confident that some of them will be more than keen to sign up to this.
And Noor, what other engagements has Scott Morrison had in the UK?
Well, before leaving the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister met the Queen briefly at Windsor Castle. Cameras did have brief access to this meeting, and on the tape you can hear the Queen asking why she didn't see the Prime Minister at Cornwall at the G7 meeting, and he responds by saying that Australia was there as a guest country. He tells her that leaders were thrilled to see her and that she was a hit at that meeting. The Prime Minister has also tweeted that he passed on his condolences to the Queen over the passing of Prince Philip. Now, Scott Morrison has since left the United Kingdom and is in France, where he met with President Macron and will hold a meeting later on with the former Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann, who now heads up the OECD. Joe?
Okay, Noor Hayder there at Parliament House in Canberra.